Well, welcome back to Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. I am so excited today to have Andrea with P5 Photography joining us. Mindy Ricks is one of your friends, and you saw her come on, and you said, I'm going to do that too. She helped set this up. So I really appreciate it. Always enjoy, seeing new faces, hearing new voices, meeting new, vendors. Here you guys are out in Poulsbo. We're all in the same kind of world here. So why don't you introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm Andrea Parmalee. I am one half of our wedding photography team. My husband photographs with me. We do all the weddings together, and we've been doing this since 2009, so a little over 12 years. We started out in Colorado. That's where my husband's from, and I'm from here. So in 2012, because of family, we moved up here and started the business over again. Kind of from scratch. But we've been doing it for a total of 12 years, and we mostly photograph weddings, and we do a lot of portraits as well. We just put in a portrait studio on our property last year. And so we've been able to utilize that a little bit. Things are picking up, of course. Things are changing and going in a better direction with that. But we're excited to have that as well. So, that's kind of our history.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, especially the photographers and video too, that, we're the events only. And then it's like, well, no, it's definitely now, that pivot, everyone using that word, but pivoting to portraits, boudoir, which I know we'll talk about, which is obviously, I think a really, the more, because I'm a dummy dumb when it comes to a lot of that stuff, but the more I've interviewed these photographers, male and female, that do that for boudoir, both male and female, it's just been, It's been a really fun thing. And I just think, so we'll get into all that too. It is crazy to me that you guys have been here so long and we've never worked together. Cause that is,
right?
2009 and then 2012 is certainly, what's it been like just the last 9 years for photographing weddings here in the Pacific Northwest?
Sure. And so part of that is, as you probably know, in the beginning, when we first moved up here, we tried to get into the Seattle Wedding Show. And at that point, I think there was a 4-year waiting list. So to be able to get in and start advertising on that side was a challenge. So we really focused over here in Kitsap County, Tacoma up to, clear up over to Port Angeles, that whole area, and really concentrated on this side. So we've never done a wedding over on the Seattle side, actually. So and it's not something we aren't willing to do. It's just not where we focus our time and attention in terms of advertising over there. So we just focus on this area. There seems to be there are a lot of country, there are a lot of barns and things like that. People love that. We do get clients that come over here from the Seattle side often. In fact, we've done a lot of engagement sessions over there, and then they come over here and get married because they love the venues that we have to offer in this area. So that's probably why we haven't worked together yet. But we've definitely had a lot of fun over here in Kitsap County. So
it is. Yeah. It's remarkable how vast Washington is when it comes to just the different, areas and landscapes, and you have the oceans and you have, just rivers and it's just crazy going through. So your husband's from Colorado. Is that where you guys met?
Yeah. It is actually funny story. I was working at a vendor booth at the Denver Stock Show and Rodeo, and he used to ride bulls. So he went to he was always at the stock show, and we met there, and we spent just a few weeks together, and the rest is history. Actually, day after tomorrow, the 16th, will be our 20-year wedding anniversary. So we've been married 20 years.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And what is your husband's name?
Raymond.
Raymond. And so you guys, and I'm looking, I see the photos on the side with him with the cowboy hat, and I definitely see a rider there. Was he sad to transition away from that, I assume, to doing weddings and stuff with you guys? What was that like?
Well, it was the children that transitioned away from that. He decided that was not something to continue to do when we had kids. And in terms of us becoming business partners and doing this together, it just sort of organically happened. I picked up a camera one day. He bought me a nice camera. At the time, I think we paid $250 for it. So, it was really exciting. It had all these fun buttons, and I started doing macro photos of flowers and things in the garden and whatnot. And was the mom with the camera. And pretty soon that moved. As a little kid, I didn't say, oh, I want to grow up and be a photographer. In fact, I was a florist for almost 20 years. So I love the creative aspect of it, but wanted to get out of the floral industry just because I missed every holiday, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, Christmas, all those. I was working ridiculous hours. And so I wanted to do something different. And I had people saying, oh, you got, this is fun. I love these pictures of your kids. I think a lot of people start out that way. Anyway, kind of turned into a few family portraits. And then working at the flower shop, I had a gal come in. She was a regular client of the flower shop. And she asked me one day, we were talking, and she said, do you want to come photograph a wedding with me? And she kind of caught me off guard because I had never photographed a wedding. I had no idea what to do. And I told her that. I said, I don't know what to do. She said, it's okay. Just show up. I'll give you a camera and a couple of, pointers. And I fell in love with it. So I was a second shooter for her for a little while. And then wanted to go off on my own, and was having some technical difficulties with the camera. So I handed it to Ray one day. He's a button pusher. And I said, help me figure this out. And he helped me figure it out. And it just sort of grew from there. I was like, you have to come with me because if I have a problem, I need you to fix it for me. I need you to be able to have my back on this. And when we moved up here in 2012, we photographed really our first wedding together. We'd done a couple of vow renewals and things in Colorado, but we did and a lot of family portraits and things. So we'd been doing it for a while, but not really the weddings. So when we moved up here in 2012, we photographed my friend's wedding, high school. I've known her since I was a little kid, but friend that was getting married. And we did it just for the experience of doing the whole day. She wasn't even going to hire a photographer. And I said, let me I'm going to come anyway. Let me bring the camera. Let me do photos. And we just clicked. Ray and I work well together. We've not even discussed it a lot over the years. We just work well together. He gets what I don't get. I get what he doesn't get. He gets the other angles. And we kind of fell in love with doing this together, and it went, kind of exploded from there. So.
Well, I definitely think it's something to be said for, having a compatible couple, right? And balancing that. And then that would make sense, right? That would translate into,
right.
Now obviously there are couples that aren't compatible, whatever. Right. But you know what I mean? But it would make sense, right? Like, my wife is definitely the more like social, right? And maybe I'm a little bit more of like the analytical. Well, that would make sense to balance, where you maybe a little more of that creativity, and then he can bring in a little bit more of that technical. It makes a lot of sense. And it also, to me, makes sense, where you got started photographing your kids, doing those things, obviously being married. I think couples really obviously relate to their vendors having gone through similar experiences, right? And when you're doing portraits and things, and you can do family sessions, and obviously
absolutely
very well at that. How many kids do you guys have?
We have 3. So
is that the P5? Is that for all 5 of you?
So that is. We struggled with naming our business, of course, because I did a lot of research into, what not to name your business. And in all the research that I did, they said, use your name, use your name, use your name. Well, we thought Raymond and Andrea photography was too much. R&A photography didn't really make sense. Like, nothing really fit. So he came up, and nobody can say Parmalee. And it rhymes, so I think it sounds funny. Parmalee photography. I don't know. We didn't like that. So Ray came up with that. He came up with the P5, and there's 5 of us, and P is for our last name, and it just sort of it stuck. And we thought about rebranding at one point and changing it, but we decided not to, and so we rebranded our logo, but we kept the name. So it's one of those where sometimes the rebrand isn't worth the yes. I know that very much. On we do a
football podcast, and we very much went through that same kind of identity crisis, right? And you're like, well,
Yes.
what do we? Yeah. So I would say, yes, sometimes, and not that P5 is a bad name, but it would be, sometimes it is better to have a bad name and keep going than it is to have
Right.
to go through.
Right.
So what is it like for you guys living and working out in Poulsbo and in the Kitsap County?
Well, and I grew up in Chimicum. I grew up in Jefferson County,
Okay.
and my grandparents, both sides of my family, lived in Poulsbo and grew up here. So I spent a lot of time in Poulsbo as a child. Definitely busier now, and it poses its own unique situation. I wouldn't say it's always a challenge. Sometimes it's a benefit, but two things. One, we're separated from Seattle by the water, so we are, in a lot of ways, separated. It's tough to, as you know, commute back and forth, take the ferry, and make all that happen. So that's another reason we really concentrate over here in this area. The other thing, though, that is an interesting and not prevalent everywhere in the country situation over here is the military. And so we're very close to the military base. So we get quite a few not repeat customer, so that's one thing that we're often getting new clients and not repeat clients because they move on, they come and go so often, which poses a challenge, but it's also exciting to meet and see new people and hear about where they're from and that sort of thing. So it has its challenges for sure. I think every area does, but we enjoy it. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's home to me. So I love the little town of Poulsbo. We just did an elopement downtown a couple weeks ago. The couple flies up here often to visit. They're not from here. They're thinking about moving here, but they live in Arizona. And when they decided to elope, they flew up to Poulsbo, eloped, and flew home the next day. So, Poulsbo is definitely a tourist town and a destination town. And we've had lots of fun just getting involved in the community, and that we have Viking Fest, and we've been quite involved with that. We've done a lot of photography for Viking Fest and all the things that go on here. So we've enjoyed being part of this community in this area, and doing photography here. So, and lots of beautiful places, of course, that's all of Washington, but I love all the variety. We can have forest, we can have beach, we can have, pasture. There's so many different options around here. So we love that aspect of it too.
It's interesting that you bring up the having to find the new clients. And that is because that's always, as a videographer, I always lament to my photographer friends. I go, yeah, well, you can do the engagement and the wedding and the baby photos and the family photos, all that. I said, me, like, they get me one time, and then maybe all my sisters get married in 5 years or whatever. So, I mean, it is, it definitely poses different challenges, right? Where you have to always be marketing and finding new stuff, where not that photographers rest on anything. No, but it is nice to know, like, oh, I have these families that are going to come. That is cool too, that obviously that you guys get to service a unique, client base that way too. And I'm sure that has a lot of cool stories and things, that you guys are able to experience.
It does. Definitely. Yes.
Talk about your guys' style of photography, and that could be either, what does it look like? And then I also want to hear about what you guys want to make it kind of feel like when you're there with the client.
Sure. So one of the things and we dabbled a little in, I do all the editing. So dabbled a little back in the day of adding, the actions and different things to get those different looks. But we really just settled on that we love that authentic, natural look. We want to see what the environment was like. So we don't typically add, we don't make them too warm or dark and moody, or none of those things would describe our style. I always tell people it's just true to your day, and that's what we really aim for style wise. And then also in terms of like wedding photography style wise, very journalistic. Of course, there's both of us. I call Ray the paparazzi because he's the one always hiding in the bushes, and the wedding guests are looking at him funny, like, what is this crazy guy doing over here in the bushes? But he's the one that gets the, the creative shots through the bushes and things like that, and the more candid things. And I'm the one that is out there saying, look here and smile, and, posing and doing the more formal portraits day of. And actually, we do that with our engagement sessions and everything as well. So they get a nice variety of photos that way. So yeah, we do that. And I forgot what a second part of your question was.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And no, that's good. And but because I had a follow up anyway, so that's good. It is funny to me. It is always on these husband wife teams. It's always the wife that is the one that does the editing, tells everyone what to do, runs the show, and then it always is the husband that's out, farting around in the bushes, getting the other shot. But I mean, it's always the strong, smart business people that are running it and doing the creative stuff. So I will commend you for that. My second question is, what do you guys make it feel like day of when you guys are there?
Yes. So one of the big things that we talk to our clients about, and we want them to really think about, and for the most part, this has always rang true, is to be fluid in your day. Of course, we always sit down and, talk about how the day is going to go. We talk about a timeline and that sort of thing, but kind of a go with the flow. And we try not to bring stress to the table. So even if in our minds like this, we're not going to have enough time to do this, we try to bring that calm and that flexibility to any situation, because gosh, I can't think of one wedding that went exactly as planned on time and everything was the way it was. I'll tell you a funny story, a quick one that is sort of pertains to this. And I don't tell anybody this anymore because I have to do it, but now the whole world will know. But because I have that florist blood in me, one of the first weddings we did up here in 2012, the bride was going to go, her plan was to go to the local, just down the road, you pick farm and get some flowers and put some bouquets together. But that was kind of the extent of her planning for flowers. So day of the wedding, no flowers, no idea who was going to go get them or how they were going to get together. So the venue owner ran down the road and got some flowers. And I gave her a quick lesson in how to make boutonnieres, and between her and I, and between getting ready photos, I got a bridal bouquet. I think she had 4 bridesmaids, and then we had 5 boutonnieres that we made, all while running back and forth, getting ready pictures. And then I set the camera down and run out and make a boutonniere, and then go back and forth, and we got it done. And she had flowers for her wedding. But the other thing that we try to do is help out. I've sewn buttons on the groom's tux before, and anything that we can do to be there, especially since there's 2 of us. We're never going to not be covering something and getting those photos. And man, if they need help with something, if they need us to do something or anything, that's what we're also there to help make their day go well. And that's always something. I always bring an emergency kit with things in it just in case, and we really try to do the best that we can, just as people, not necessarily as their photographer, to help them have the best day that they can. So
no, and that's great. I mean, we were talking before we hit record about personalities, right, and wanting to attract, and it is. I mean, we talk about this all the time on here, where we're there all day. You're going to be there and finding someone that you're comfortable with. If you need help getting into your dress or getting out of your dress. I mean, I know photographers,
I've done that too.
I remember, like one of the first weddings we had, one of the bridesmaids like split her dress and someone had to sew stuff, and you're like, there's all this stuff. And so it's hard where, I was laughing because I was at a vendor thing earlier this week, and we were talking, and the idea is with COVID and everything else, it's become a lot more like, okay, what about this contract and what about this thing and what do we do? Where we really are a service industry, right? And we want to, ultimately, that is what we're there for, is to serve and do. And it's just sad how kind of, everything's kind of fallen apart the last year, where ultimately we want to be there, like you said, helping fix the makeup before we got to go down the aisle or do whatever, the things that you are used to doing and helping out with. So hopefully we'll get back to that point here soon.
Hopefully. That's been a challenge too. I'm used to just going up and positioning a hand or fixing the hair or doing something and hands off. And that's been tough. So even though we had very few small weddings last year, we still, and this year this spring, we haven't done much of anything. We've had a couple small elopements, but the fall is going to hit us hard. We have a lot booked this, starting towards the end of July and into the fall. I think people are put it off for the spring, hoping that things would be closer to normal in the fall. So yes, that was a challenge for sure. But I'm a hands-on person because, we got to go at a pretty good pace. And especially when we're doing portraits and things, you got to move it along. So I'm used to doing that. Now I have to use my words. And after doing that for so many years, not doing that, telling yourself not to do that and finding the right words to tell someone that, to move this strand of hair or do this was challenging at first. And I'm getting better at it, but it was tough.
Yeah. We're becoming better communicators verbally, hopefully.
That is true.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
What I always ask, it's not the best way, but ideal client, what kind of clients do you find gravitate towards your guys' personality and work? And then who do you gravitate to, cause it's kind of a simpatico, relationship, but what's kind of your ideal target client you guys like to work with?
Sure. And that's pretty easy to answer. The easygoing couple, of course, is always, our favorite. Those are the best days, the ones that are just willing to roll with the punches. And to be honest, not just for our sake, but for theirs, they're the ones that have the best day when they can just go with it and enjoy it and have fun and not be stressed about it. Also, we really gravitate a lot towards, country folk, I guess you would call them. I mean, we do a lot of barn weddings. We did one in somebody's pasture where they rode in on horseback, because both my husband and I have horse experience, livestock experience. We get hired often because of that. I showed horses for years when I was younger, and we had a barn full of them. We had, 14 or so at one time. So I have a lot of equine experience, and so does my husband. We, in fact, are doing a wedding that we're very excited about in August on Whidbey Island. That is a 2-day wedding. They are going to it's kind of a medieval theme. They're going to have jousting. They're going to have, they have a horse that we're possibly going to hook up with a cart or chariot to do some formal portraits. And they specifically wanted and they're going to have people bring in some horses for the jousting and stuff. So they wanted somebody that had that experience, and they hired us, of course, I would hope based on our style and personalities as well, but it was a big selling factor that we had horse experience, because that's important. They want everybody to be safe on their wedding day, and they don't want people in there that are unfamiliar and, not able to be safe. So that translates into all kinds of things. Senior portraits. We have a lot of seniors that we take their portraits with their horses, and we're kind of known, I guess we're known for that. I don't know. They seem to find us. So anybody, of course, with animals, and seem to find us. And I think that's probably because a lot of the portraits that we show have, are a barn wedding or, somebody with their horse. So I think you sell what you show. So I think that people find us based on that too. So,
well, I think that's cool. I think that's a really unique selling point, and just that familiarity there, because it's a little different with video. I mean, sometimes people just want, we're a little more documentary, but yeah, sometimes with photographers, and we'll be at a wedding and I'm like, this is not your guys's vibe. Right. I just know, cause I know people, and I'm like, I don't know why we're here,
Wow.
But I think that's a unique, obviously besides just doing, beautiful weddings and portraits and things. But I think having that as a thing, especially with just how crazy, I mean, who would have thought the barn wedding country thing forever now? I mean, it's...
Yes. seems to be the thing.
What are your thoughts about that? That's crazy.
I am surprised sometimes by the people that want that, just because they're not, they're city folk that want the country. And I think they're just looking for something different, something out of the ordinary, or just simply like that style. Just because they don't live in the country doesn't mean they don't like that style. But I don't know. Sometimes it can be a little over the top, but I love it. It's my environment, and same with Raymond. This is what we grew up in. I grew up in a barn practically. I spent most of my time there as a child, so I love the country feel. And we had one bride specifically ask us if we would be able to wear our jeans and cowboy boots to the wedding, and of course, yes, I'm more than happy to do that. So
yeah, we had a wedding. Oh, was it like 3 years ago? And it was, she was Chinese. He was he was more just kind of like, it wasn't even rugged wasn't the word, because he was pretty well put together, but it was like a country. They were in like jean jackets, but then like we still had like the tea ceremony and everything else. Like, it was really
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was, and like all their portraits and stuff, like he had jeans and they had like, not like burlap vests, but like kind of like a suede vest. I mean, it was a whole, but it was still, it was still Chinese, whatever. But then with the Asian, it was, it's good to flaunt that around, I guess, and do,
Sure.
Make it your own. So
Absolutely.
that was one of two couples in the same summer made their own last names. And I was like, wow, we are.
Now I have not heard of that. That was interesting.
Yeah, we had two different couples that same summer. One was in June and then one was in September, and they both made their own combined names and made their own last names. So,
well, that's fun.
Yeah, it was
a way to be creative.
It was Wang, and then his was like Hopian, so they were the Wangopians.
Well, that's fun.
That's
I love it.
That's good. I want to hear about your and Raymond's wedding day.
Okay. I will. It's very easy to sum it up. I was wearing a $15 dress from Walmart. We went to the Justice of Peace in a little tiny town called Bowie, Texas. Stood in front of the corkboard with a no smoking sign pinned to it. The gentleman that was probably also the secretary, I don't know, he was the only person in the building, pronounced our names wrong and said, do you, yes, you're married. The only one there was my mother. We planned to go to the mall and get in one of those photo booths and get our photo taken, but it wasn't there when we got there. They had it there, but it was gone. So we don't have one photo of our wedding day, not one. This was, 20 years ago. We didn't have cell phones or anything. My mom didn't think to bring the camera. And we went out to dinner at the Olive Garden, and then we went to see the third Crocodile Dundee movie in the theaters, and then we went home. So I think one of the things that I love most about weddings is I kind of get to live vicariously through the couples, because we did not do that. We've talked about renewing our vows and having a big shindig, and one of these days maybe we will. But that was our wedding day. Him and his Wranglers, and me in a blue dress with flowers on it from Walmart. So
I love it though. Well, I think it's so, I always ask that if, obviously if people are married, but, cause I feel, cause I was not married or anything when I got into weddings, and then my wife and I, and now I do weddings still. And I feel like I'm such a better wedding vendor having gone through that process, and whatever that looks like, right? Because you could be we've had event planners come on and go, my wedding was horrible, and this is why I wanted to be an event planner. Or
I hear that often. Yes, based on their own experiences, and we get asked that. So, what did you do about this or that for your wedding? And we always kind of laugh and tell people that one of the reasons we really value wedding photography is that we have not one photo of our wedding day. However it panned out, it would have been really nice to have some photos. So, and I have nothing but my fading memory as I get older. So
no, but it helps you, because everything, to lead us, to where we are, you're able to speak to that so much, right? And really, and when you guys are working and capturing, these memories, I mean, that's what I mean is it's having gone through it and you just know, it's like I remember I used to people would be planning weddings and I'm like, what are they doing? Or don't they I emailed them last week, what is the holdup? And then you go through it and you're like, oh, well, I understand that they do all these other things. So no, I mean, I think that is certainly, but like you said, you have that added care and thought that goes into capturing those memories. And I think that that's still really special and helps, kind of work that out. So
yes.
So you guys have a new studio. Is it on property or is it at a place?
It is. We have 8 acres. We're just outside of town, so we're very easy to find. And yes, we have, so the studio is about 640 square feet. So it's actually one of those pre-made, storage shed, basically, that we did the whole inside, wood floors and insulated and drywalled. We did all the work ourselves other than the building itself. And it took us about 8 months to get it finished. And yes, we have it on, we have 8 acres. And so we have some forest and pasture and outside options also. So we do a lot outside too.
And so you guys, are we rolling that out? Are you starting to get reactions now and utilizing that more? I mean, that's a pretty new thing you guys are adding on, right?
It is. And we've had so we've been here on the property for almost 9 years, and we've done a lot with the pasture and the forest and, the property we've used over the years for photography a lot. But having the building is really nice because, yes, it's something that it's not something we really even wanted for a long time. Thought about it back and forth, but of course, at that time, it was, do we rent something versus, we didn't think about building something here on the property. But we didn't really want the expense of that, the overhead of that, because it's something that we figured we wouldn't use very often. Boy, were we wrong. We use this place all the time and really have been enjoying it. So for all kinds of things, lots of portraits, and, of course, with the boudoir, that's opened up the possibility to that. Although, before the studio, we did do a couple of boudoir sessions out in pasture, but you got to be really brave for that. We have a couple of neighbors, so no.
Are you in the studio right now?
I am.
There you go. Yeah. And it works well for a podcast. It's super fun.
It does.
Talk about the boudoir. And what I like about this so much is it's another thing that photographers, can sell, work on, market that's not weddings. And also it really, for the ones where it leads to a wedding, where it's like a gift or a whatever, it just adds so much to the comfortability of the day, right? Where you guys, you've gone through something with them. So I don't want to put words in your mouth. So talk to me about the boudoir and how did that come about? And what do you see as the benefits of that from a client working with the client point of view?
Of course. Well, a couple things for that. One, having the studio, now we could really advertise and do that. But also our business mentor was a photographer here in Kitsap County for 10 years. And she said, oh gosh, you guys have got to, there's a market here for that. And she encouraged us to really add that on to what we were already offering. And she came in and she brought in some models and we did a whole bunch of, working with lighting and that sort of thing. And kind of getting, because it's different. It's like being a newborn photographer. We don't do that because it's a completely different world. Well, boudoir kind of is too. And although we had done a little here and there, it was fairly new to us. And so we worked a lot on that. One thing that we do, and this seems to be, I'll be honest, a little off-putting sometimes, but we try to explain it this way. So Ray and I both do the boudoir if people want us to. Of course, if they're not comfortable with him doing it, I'm the only one that does it. But he does some pretty amazing creative stuff. And we love working together. So it's comfortable for us, but it has to be comfortable for them. So that's something that we leave as an option. If they want to work with him, also, absolutely, they're going to get some other creative images as well. Or they can choose to just have me. But yes, so one of the things about doing boudoir for brides is a couple things. One, it doesn't have to necessarily be bridal boudoir. So it doesn't have to be your veil or something white. It could be anything, because it can be a gift for your, for your wedding day. It's a perfect gift. And it is an opportunity. It's such a vulnerable experience that it really, once we've been through that together, the wedding day is no problem, so we've experienced that, and we've built that relationship that is, gosh, every time we come out of a boudoir session, it's empowering, and we use that word a lot and tend to almost overuse it, but it really is. That's probably the best word you can use for it. So even though the idea might be for our brides to be creating a gift for their spouse, it's also an experience that most of them haven't had before, and it gets them more comfortable in front of the camera. I mean, if you've done boudoir and then you go and do an engagement session or a wedding, that comfort level is, you're already comfortable in front of the camera. You've spent 2 hours, in your lingerie, so it's easy to move on to that. And we build a great relationship with our clients. They do hair and makeup here at the studio, so we have about an hour to chat and get to know them. And some of them have some fantastic stories to tell. We've had some great ones, and we get to laughing together, and we build that relationship before we even start doing photos. So it's definitely a benefit in lots of different ways, for sure. So.
No, absolutely. And like I said, from just a client photographer perspective, alone, besides all the wonderful things that, the deliverables and everything you get out of it, I think it's so cool. And then to get the stunning photos, I will say I will never get over how funny it is if the guys or whoever are getting those books on their wedding day, like if they're going to do a first look or not, maybe they don't see him to the ceremony, but they get the book. And for video, it's great because they're always like, oh, what is this? And they usually don't know, and they'll be like, oh, and then they go to hide it. But we have some funny videos of like some big tough guys and being like, ooh, like what is this? So no, I mean, I think it's one of those things. I think we've gotten away from the joy of weddings in the last year with everything else going on. And I think that something like that is a great way to add on some kind of fun stuff to do during while you're young and engaged or whatever. And even if you're not, and we've certainly had, I've heard stories of, you don't have to be married to do that stuff. You could just be someone that wants to have a wonderful day and have photos taken. Right.
Yes. And many of our clients are single. Yeah. Many, in fact, I just got off the phone with a gal that wants to absolutely do this for her. Yeah. This is something that she wants to do for her. And that's probably about 50% of our boudoir clients are single. So it is something that a lot of people do for a lot of different reasons, but it is definitely fun when they're doing it for a gift. And we even offer the option to leave whatever product that they've purchased here at the studio to hide it essentially from the nosy,
the prying eyes. Yeah. Prying eyes somewhere. That's
right. So
this has been good. Is there anything else you wanted to make sure we touched on today before we let you go? I'm glad that we got to talk about the studio and the boudoir.
No, business is booming compared to last year. So we're just in the swing of things and really enjoying it. And excited to start using the studio more. We finished it up right before they shut everything down last year. So we've been able to use it, but not as much as we wanted necessarily. So it's been fun the last couple of months even to see that upswing in clients and to be able to utilize it more. And then the weather is beautiful. We just did some shooting outside and love the property and the springtime. And we're just excited for wedding season and really excited and hopeful that things are starting to track back to somewhat normal. Gosh, I can't imagine being a bride in these times. gosh, I just can't even imagine. And we've done our best to, comfort everybody and get people through it. But it'll be good to be moving on, and hopefully, and we're looking forward to the fall and all the things that we've got. We've got graduations going on and all the things that are going on this spring. So we're quite busy, but it's wonderful. So.
Yes, and I would be remiss if I didn't let a mother of three share at least one story about your family and what you do when you're not, photographing and doing everything else before we let you go today. So why don't you paint us a little picture of what you have at home?
Sure. So we have a 19-year-old and 18-year-old, both boys, and then a 13-year-old girl. And we love to do outdoor stuff. One of our favorite things to do is beach combing, of course. That's a favorite.
I think that's fun.
Hiking and things. We are also spontaneous sometimes. And a couple of weeks ago, we were sitting around. It was about 2:00 in the afternoon, and we'd had some things going on that morning, but we were all home because, now the boys have jobs and, it's hard to all be together. But we were all sitting in the living room asking each other, what are we going to do today? And somebody said, I think we should go to Leavenworth. And somebody else said, well, it's kind of late for that. And I said, well, let's just go have dinner. So we jumped in the car and we drove. It took us 4 hours to get there. Usually it's a 3-hour drive. It took us 4 hours to get there. We got there a little after 6:00. We had an amazing dinner. We walked around town for a few minutes, got in the truck and drove home. So sometimes we just do spontaneous things. And but we love to go. We love to go down into Oregon. That's one of our favorite places to go. And until the pandemic hit, every fall, our tradition was to go down to Roll-Off Farm and get our pumpkins. So that was always our fall family trip, as we'd go down there for a couple of days. We love to stay in Astoria. So yeah, those kinds of things. That's what we love to do. But the kids are growing up. Our middle son is graduating from high school in a couple of weeks. So that's starting to get real. I got his photos in the mail the other day, and we're sending out announcements, and 2 down, 1 to go. So
did he let you do the photos?
Yes.
That's good. Well, so I can see, I can see it other way. I can see it yes, or I can see it no, hell no, so that's good.
Yes, and I've heard stories of that. So although our children are very gracious and will model for us, and our daughter loves it, but our boys, they could take it or leave it. We've always asked them if they're interested in doing that or not. And generally they'll say yes. Sometimes they'll say no, but we've never really forced that upon them. So they're more willing to, have us do that when needed. One thing we have told them, though, is that we will not photograph their weddings, because we want to be part of their day. So we will help them find exactly. I cannot see through the tears. So that won't be happening.
I don't know if I've heard of a mother photographing her son's wedding. That would be a tricky, a lot of emotions.
Nope, not going to do it. I'm going to leave the camera at home. It's tempting, but in some ways, because, but nope. We'll find them a good photographer, and we'll enjoy their day. So he's kind of a clown, but he's a photographer over here, one of my friends, but he did photograph his own wedding, and he was very proud of that. They just eloped. It was like it wasn't like a full, they just did I think they got married at the courthouse, and then it was downtown Seattle. But he said, no one told me I could do it, and I'm going to do it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to show them. That's funny. Good for him.
Well, you killed it today. I know you were a little nervous. There was no need to be at all. We did fantastic. I think this was great. If people want to learn more about you and Raymond and your family and photography and everything else, where would you have them check out?
Sure. So we're mostly on Facebook and Instagram. We're P5 Photography LLC, because believe it or not, there's a P5 Photography in Oregon somewhere. So we are LLC, and I think it comes up with Paulsbo, Washington also, but that is us. And then we are p5photography.com. And then our email is smile@p5photography.com.
I like that one. I got the email from you. That was good.
We're pretty easy to find. So yeah, those are the platforms we're mostly on.
Well, perfect. Thank you again. If you're like Andrea and you're interested in coming on a future episode of the podcast, you can go to bestmadevideos.com/podcast guest. And that's a nice, easy questionnaire we have to get you in the system. Thank you again. Like I said, it's always great to meet new voices I haven't had the opportunity to work with. And like I said, I'm amazed in however many years we haven't crossed paths, but hopefully I'll make it over there and we can
hopefully we will one of these days. So
well, perfect. Well, thank you guys so much again and check back next time.
Thank you. Take care.